And from music to movies, where African Movie Academy Award-winning Nigerian filmmaker Ogo Okwe is pushing the African narrative and culture within the horror genre with his critically acclaimed A Song from the Dark. The movie, which is a first feature by the filmmaker, has been screened at various international film festivals and follows the chain of events that happens after a woman hired an African spirit hunter to expel a spirit that has been tormenting her family. Details in the Spotlight feature.
Fresh up winning the African Movie Academy Awards prize for Best Feature by a new director, UK-based Nigerian filmmaker Ogo Okwe is confident about the space of African stories within the international movie space. His award-winning horror feature, A Song from the Dark, explores African mysticism with the same audacity as the West's creation of superheroes and villains.
Do we embrace the hand we are dealt in life?
I think for me, what's exciting about horror is just how it travels internationally. Like genre films travel internationally, action, horror, some form of thrillers, they travel internationally. For me, it's more about how you can wrap stories into things that anyone can relate with. You watch a film even Leave It in Bondage, for example. Yeah, it has horror elements, but there's a story behind it, and it stays with you, and you learn from it. Horror in itself is something that if anyone in the world can watch, they get an exact feeling. There's no confusion and nuance. If you're doing a love story, someone in China wouldn't understand how Nigerians create such a scenario. The only industry that's been fortunate is the American industry. So when they do love films and the rest of it, people get it, but it's hard for other people to interpret. Now with horror, everyone understands it. Everyone understands fear. Fear is something you don't need to educate someone on. You get it from the get-go. That in itself is a way to push the culture of Africa forward. Because if a man in China or a man in France or a woman in Denmark sees a Nigerian horror film, they can relate to it, then what's in next interest?
A Song from the Dark stars Nigeria's Nsek Betum, Wale Ojo, and British-Ghanaian actress Vanessa Vatapuye, who is happy that for once, African religion and mysticism are vilified in a movie.
I feel like as a society we are quite spiritual beings. Even if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in Allah, whatever you believe in, you know that there's a higher power. So at some point I feel like everyone they have a feeling, they know that there is a higher being and why we all exist. So understanding new cultures, understanding different ethnicities, different cultures, I think it'll be ignorant for you to not learn. And I think, again, there's a lot of stigmas against juju spirituality in any type of African cultures, but if you understand where it stems from and if you understand where it comes from, if you understand the history about it, I think there'll be less a taboo about it, and just people will just learn to understand. And that's how I feel like communities are built, and everyone becomes a stronger and less ignorant society in general.
In recent times, there's been a noticeable shift in the demand for content both in the music and movie world. While Nigerians' Afrobeat is already gaining prominence within the music world, African stories and culture are also getting big budget from major studios in the movie world. Ogo believes now is the time for Africans to own the narrative.
Growing up, I was, reading Batman, Iron Man, Wonder Woman, all these things. Now we've got in Hollywood Black Panther, right? But Black Panther is made by the West. And then they come here and everyone is dressing in, senator outfits and everything, looking funky and cool. The reality is we need more black people. It's a strong conversation, it's hard. It's difficult because when you have a story, like you have films like Woman King and the rest of it, where they're funded by people that are not African, the subject matter is treated very differently. I believe that Africa needs heroes and we should not be afraid of the origin of these heroes. If it comes from things that people are afraid of, traditional religion, it's not an issue, because the truth is we're opening conversations about the culture internationally. We're getting more people interested in Africa. And people relate in different ways. So you have stories about mystical warriors, you have stories about Queen Amina, you have stories about Shango, you have stories of, there are different ways you can pick these things. And people relate to it. Conversations would start, co-productions would start. Young children would have people international that they can collaborate with. And then you have a bigger conversation. Japan has got anime, manga, and ninjas. When we were young, we used to watch ninja films. That's how we knew about Japan and China and all those places, right? How else can we teach people about Nigeria or Ghana or Kenya or Nairobi? Well, if they don't want to learn about true Afrobeats, then we've got all these kind of characters they can learn from. And the conversation gets bigger, more exciting.
Do we embrace the hand we are dealt in life?
A song from the dark is inspired by memories from Okwe's childhood, as told by his grandmother.
Or can we change our fate with our fragile hands?
That was definitely thrilling.